fellow cyborgs! So I just wanted to do a quick and super casual wrap up to the Slow Readathon. So that took place from the 12th to the 18th of September, and it was created by Alina over at Marlin Alina. And in my TBR, I said that I wanted to try to get to 4 books through that week, and I'm going to tell you if I succeeded or didn't. This ended up being a buddy read week with Acacia Ives, and we started out with Our Endless Numbered Days by Claire Fuller, and we ended up finishing this within the first 3 days of the readathon, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely got more out of it and the ending after talking about it with Acacia, because at first the ending, there was such a chilling revelation at the end, and I didn't know what to do with it really, and so we talked about it a bit more. But it was so incredibly well written. The fairy tale themes in here just pervade throughout. One of the things that I thought was really interesting that I didn't expect is that this takes place, 3/4 of it takes place in the woods with her father, because this starts off with you realizing that Peggy's been taken into the woods by her father and told that the world has ceased to exist and they're the only survivors, but she's escaped and come back to live with her mother. So 3/4 of the book is with her and her father in the woods. So this is a really interesting look at how you would survive in a forest and how weird relationships can get when you're in that sort of isolated sort of situation. So I really enjoyed it, and I would look forward to rereading it, and I think I'd be able to pick more out of it upon reread. Then we read Pond by Claire Louise Bennett, or rather, Acacia read it all in one sitting, and I stopped my reread at page 35. I wasn't quite in the mood for it, and I forgot how incredibly stream of consciousness and quirky this is. So I didn't end up finishing my reread of this, and that's okay. I've got a bunch of new books that I'm reading right now, and that's more what I'm focusing on. So, that was kind of a fail. I didn't actually reread anything this week, but that's okay. Stuff happens, and what are you gonna do? The next thing, well, actually throughout the week, in between that, we were reading together The No You Never Listened To by Maggie Royer, which is a poetry collection about the aftermath and healing of a sexual violence experience, a sexual attack. I really, really enjoyed reading this aloud. Acacia and I would take turns depending upon the section, because this is divided into 7 different sections. The poems themselves were raw and beautiful at the same time, and mixed that together at a really great percentage ratio for me. It wasn't too graphic as far as the detailing of the attack or anything. There are some instances of it, but it'll be a line here or there. So for me, who's quite sensitive to that subject matter but isn't triggered, I haven't experienced sexual violence per se, it didn't make me as anxious as I was afraid it would. And these poems are so beautifully written, and for me it very much perfectly balances the line with beautiful poetry and raw poetry. And there are also a lot of fairy tale references in here. This is a really important poetry collection, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars, and I don't foresee any other poetry collection this year topping it. So if you think you can handle this, if you are at all interested, I highly, highly recommend this. I really can't recommend it more. I think it's wonderful and really important. And finally, the last thing that we picked up, but actually finished on Monday, is White Oleander. But hey, who am I to be limited by our arbitrary denotions of days of the week? So this is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. I have previously read Paint It Black by her. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. This I also gave 4 out of 5 stars. I loved in here the variety of female characters. I loved the psychological depth in here, and the language and how it's written is at both somehow lyrical and colloquial. It's weird. It's beautifully written, but it's not over the top. Occasionally sentences will stick out with you as being something really beautiful, but for the most part you just enjoy the story and enjoy how it's being told. It's a really, really lovely blend that way. The only reason I didn't give this 5 stars is because I found the atmosphere, though while completely realistic and detailed, kind of claustrophobic for me. So she's bounced around to different foster homes that aren't great, and you're living in California and LA, and California is not my favorite, even though that's where I live and it's where I've grown up. So yeah, I think it's just because of the atmosphere that it wasn't my favorite, but this has some really kick-ass characters, some really psychologically varied characters. There isn't a huge representation of people of color, though there are a couple characters. That's perhaps like the only like lacking thing is it's not terribly diverse, but this is more just a psychological book, really. And it does an excellent job of exploring different sorts of maybe personality disorders, mental illnesses, and just and ways that that people cope and can adapt pretty much. So yeah, I've really so far have been really impressed with Janet Fitch's work, and I wish she had more, but she pretty much just has White Oleander and Paint It Black. So that was my quick wrap up. I gave White Oleander 4 out of 5 stars. Pond, upon first reading, gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so I didn't reread it this week. The Know You Never Listened To got 5 stars, and Our Endless Number Days got 4 stars, so pretty darn successful. As far as doing the challenges of the readathon, I read a book aloud. I barely annotated White Oleander, and I don't think I did very many of the other challenges, and that's okay. I had a really enjoyable week, and I had a really fun time reading those books with Acacia, and I think I'm now addicted to reading poetry to people over Voxer, because I love reading poetry aloud, but reading it aloud to myself somehow is more embarrassing than reading it aloud to people who aren't in the room with me. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a successful Slowathon or Diversathon during that week, or just general week. I hope you had a lovely week. Until next time, please continue to be lovely. You are a poisonous oleander. And thank you to my patrons who are supporting this channel on Patreon. It's become like so rehearsed, me saying that, so I'm trying to work on making it different by just changing the tones of my voice. It's weird. I'm weird, but I think you guys know that, and I think that might be why you are some of my patrons, because I'm just your kind of weird. Thank you, as always. I hope you're still enjoying the content. I hope you had a lovely week, especially, and that you are continuing to be lovely.